expelled for violating decorum rules during a protest for gun reform on the House floor. Their case drawing national attention and outrage. Justin Jones visiting his church today on the eve of a special meeting by the Nashville Metro Council to reappoint him to his former seat. His Democratic colleague Justin Pearson was also ousted by Republicans. Commissioners in his county are also considering similar measures. He'd only been in office for 10 weeks. Both men were expelled after taking to the House floor to push for gun reform after a mass shooting at a private Christian school in Nashville that killed 6 people, including 3 9-year-old children. Republican lawmakers defending their vote and pushing back against accusations of racism after white Democratic colleague Gloria Johnson survived expulsion by a single vote. ABC's Faith Abube leads us off tonight from Nashville.
Ousted Tennessee lawmaker Justin Jones visiting his church home on Easter Sunday, bringing the congregation to its feet.
Would y'all help me welcome Brother Justin Jones today?
Members of the Watson Grove Church
be with him,
covering Jones in prayer as he faces a critical week ahead.
It's not over. That we are a resurrection people.
The Nashville Metro Council set to convene a special meeting Monday to nominate Jones back to his legislative seat. Jones was ousted in a Republican-led effort to expel him and Democratic colleague Justin Pearson. Commissioners in Pearson's County also considering similar action.
It's a historical abuse of power, and the supermajority Republican legislature who would rather expel our voices and try to expel our people's voices from the people's house rather than address the issue of gun violence.
Pearson just won his seat in January during a special election. Tennessee Republican House members today defending their vote.
They disrupted the function, started mobilizing and shouting and creating chaos within the House of Representatives to the point that business could not be conducted.
They're speaking out. They're speaking out on some serious issues, and they deserve to be heard. This is democracy.
Nashville Vice Mayor Jim Schulman and constituents of the ousted Democrats questioning the severity of the punishment.
I'm angry. I feel like it's suppressing the vote that myself and my family and 70,000 other people have cast.
We should be represented. This should not have happened.
Jones tells me the expulsion vote has only given him a deeper conviction to act.
There are people who don't have anyone to do their constituent affairs anymore. We definitely have unfinished business.
Pearson says he expects to be reappointed soon. Faith Abube joins us now. Faith, we know the Nashville board has called a special meeting for tomorrow. What's the goal?
Lindsay, the council will try to suspend its own rules in order to expedite the process to appoint Jones back to his old seat. But this process could drag out if 2 members were to object. The vice mayor tells me he's optimistic he'll get the votes. Lindsay?
Faith Abube in Nashville for us. Thank you, Faith. Now to the new battleground in the abortion debate in this country. The Biden administration is vowing to protect access to a key abortion pill. That's after a federal judge in Texas ruled to suspend the FDA's long-standing approval of mifepristone. ABC's Elizabeth Schulte reports from the White House.
Tonight, the Biden administration vowing to use every option to preserve Americans' access to the abortion pill.
Every option is on the table.
After a conservative federal judge in Texas ruled to suspend FDA approval of mifepristone, a medication approved 23 years ago and used in more than half of U.S. abortions.
This is not America. What you saw by that one judge in that one court in that one state, that's not America.
The Justice Department appealing the case. It now heads to the conservative Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans, set to weigh in this week, deciding if mifepristone should stay available as the case works through the legal system, likely all the way to the Supreme Court. The anti-abortion group that filed the lawsuit tells ABC News it's hopeful.
We're happy to obtain that preliminary ruling from the district court, but we know obviously this is not the last stage and the last word on this issue, and we're ready to go to the next stage.
If the Texas ruling stands, even Americans in states where abortion is legal wouldn't have access to the medication. President Biden warning it is the next big step toward the national ban on abortion that Republican elected officials have vowed to make law in America. But many top Republicans staying quiet on the case after abortion rights helped fuel Democratic wins in local and midterm elections.
The Texas judge's ruling allows for the abortion pill to remain available for at least the next 5 days or until that appeals court weighs in. So it's possible that in the next week, governors and clinics in states where abortion is legal stock up on the medication so they can have it on hand if U.S. manufacturing and distribution are eventually halted. Lindsay.
Elizabeth Schulze from the White House. Thank you, Elizabeth. Former Attorney General Bill Barr is weighing in tonight with a warning for his former boss, President Trump. Barr slammed the Manhattan DA's indictment of Trump for allegedly paying hush money to adult film star Stormy Daniels during an appearance on ABC's This Week. But he said the Department of Justice's special counsel probe into Trump's handling of classified documents could pose a real threat.
The government is investigating the extent to which games were played and there was obstruction in keeping the documents from them. And I think that's a serious potential case. I think they probably have some very good evidence there.
One of Trump's attorneys has dismissed the possibility of the former president facing obstruction charges, calling it nonsense. Overseas now, Pope Francis presiding over Easter services for tens of thousands in St. Peter's Square. The pontiff, who was hospitalized with bronchitis more than a week ago, prayed for both the people of Ukraine and Russia and called on the international community to work to resolve the conflict. Francis also made an appeal for peace in the Middle East after a wave of escalating violence. Here's ABC's Marcus Moore reporting in tonight from the Vatican.
Tonight, Pope Francis leading Easter Mass before a crowd of 100,000 after a recent hospital stay sparked fears about his health. The Pope expressing deep concern over the Middle East and praying for peace in war-torn regions around the world. The crowd cheering Holy Father with shouts of, quote, "Long live the Pope." Pope Francis arriving to preside over the Mass in a wheelchair, seen here greeting the cardinals of the church, before circling St. Peter's Square in the Pope Mobile, waving to the cheering faithful. Then from the famous loggia, delivering his Easter message.
Cristo è risorto.
Brothers and sisters, he says, Christ is risen. Pope Francis also praying for peace between Israel and Palestine amid continuing violence.
Necessario per riprendere il dialogo tra israeliani.
Saying, I express deep concern about the attacks in recent days that threaten the desired climate of trust and mutual respect that is necessary to resume dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians. Pope Francis also speaking about the war in Ukraine. Help the beloved Ukrainian people on their journey toward peace and shed the light of Easter upon the people of Russia. The address comes just a week after Pope Francis was released from the hospital.
And Lindsay, certainly at 86 years old, there will be concerns about the Pope's health moving forward. But the fact that he was able to lead Easter Mass this morning so soon after his illness was encouraging to so many. Lindsay.
Reassuring in the midst of so much uncertainty, Marcus. Thank you. Now to the war in Ukraine and emotional scenes as more than 24 children are reunited with their families. Some mothers seeing their children for the first time in months after they were allegedly taken from their homes and moved to Russian-occupied territories. Russia is accused of abducting the children, but Russian officials say that they were removed to keep them safe. ABC's Tom Sophie Burge has the latest from Ukraine.
Tonight, an emotional reunion. More than 30 Ukrainian children rescued by their mums from Russia. NGO Save Ukraine saying it made the mission possible, with Natalia traveling through Russia to rescue her twin daughters from a summer camp in Russian-occupied Crimea. Dasha and Alyona, aged 13, moved there when their city was occupied by Russian forces. They then couldn't leave. 19,000 Ukrainian children illegally deported to Russia during the war, according to Ukrainian officials. President Putin accused of facilitating the deportations and now facing war crimes charges at The Hague. It comes amid a different kind of rescue in southern Ukraine. Emergency crews pulling a mum alive from the rubble of her home in Zaporizhia. A Russian missile killing her husband and 11-year-old daughter. In Kharkiv, evidence of months of bombardment on full display.
The remnants of Russian missiles which have hit Kharkiv are all around me, stored here as evidence of alleged war crimes. But check out the scale of Russian attacks on one single city.
And that mass US intelligence breach unravelling this weekend, with ABC News reviewing more than 30 pages of what appear to be classified documents published online. Tonight, these documents that ABC News has reviewed appear to show evidence of the US not only spying on its enemies, but also its allies. The documents seem to contain references of what leaders in Russia as well as Ukraine and other allies were saying in their internal discussions.
Lindsay, ABC News is still trying to authenticate the documents and work out if they were doctored. Lindsay?
Tom, thank you. Now to those dueling military drills in Taiwan and China. China's military simulating air and sea attacks against the island for the second straight day. ABC's Britt Clennett has been following the developments, and Britt joins us now from Taiwan. Britt, what's the latest on the ground there?
Lindsay, China has simulated strikes against key targets in Taiwan as part of another day of drills aimed at intimidating this self-ruled island. China's military releasing an animation of how they'd see those targets hit. China is sending a clear message after Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen visited the United States and after U.S. lawmakers visited here. U.S. officials are watching these drills extremely closely, Lindsay, saying they have sufficient resources and capabilities to ensure safety and peace. Taiwan says 35 fighter jets crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait. Reports also of a standoff involving 20 Chinese and Taiwanese ships. Taiwan also carrying out their own much smaller land exercises with missile launches. Taiwan is the reddest of red lines for China. It considers Taiwan a breakaway province and has never ruled out taking the island by force. Lindsay?
Britt, thank you. Now to a controversy that's brewing in Texas. Governor Abbott is seeking to pardon a U.S. Army sergeant who was convicted on Friday of murdering a protester at a Black Lives Matter demonstration back in 2020. Daniel Perry is now facing a life sentence. How the DA is responding, and we warn you that the video may be disturbing for some viewers. Here's ABC's Irene Shaw.
Tonight, Texas Governor Greg Abbott aiming to pardon a man convicted of murder. 2020 fatal Austin shooting caught on video. You can hear a series of shots as the gunman, Army Sergeant Daniel Perry, killed 28-year-old Air Force veteran Garrett Foster, who was armed with an AK-47 and protesting against police brutality and racial injustice.
Guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in count 1.
Perry, who pleaded not guilty and claimed self-defense, breaking down in tears after a jury convicted him of murder on Friday. But just one day later, Abbott requested the State Board of Pardons and Paroles grant Perry a pardon, suggesting the shooting fell under Stand Your Ground laws. Tweeting, "I look forward to approving the board's pardon as soon as it hits my desk."
By refusing to accept the valid judgment of a criminal jury here in Travis County, the governor has undermined our rule of law in the state of Texas.
According to evidence prosecutors presented in court, Perry posted on social media about his desire to shoot protesters.
The jury had the opportunity to evaluate all of the evidence available, including evidence that pertained to Mr. Perry's thoughts and planning.
Foster's widow, Whitney, who says she is still grieving, believes Perry's conviction should stand.
And you can hear the heartache in her voice. As for Perry's lawyer, we reached out but did not hear back. Perry faces a sentence of up to life in prison if he is not pardoned. Lindsay?
Zorine, thank you. Next tonight, an urgent investigation is underway in Wisconsin after 2 police officers were killed during a traffic stop. The suspect was also killed in an exchange of gunfire with the officers. The officers from 2 separate northern Wisconsin departments were pronounced dead at the scene. A heat wave is moving across the country, and some historic temperatures could be on the horizon. Near record-setting snow fell in the upper Midwest over the winter, and residents in places like Stillwater, Minnesota are bracing and preparing for the big thaw with sandbags. Let's get right to ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano. Rob, how hot can we expect it to get this week?
Lindsay, I mean, it's going to feel more like July than the middle of April everywhere with the exception of the West Coast. Let's go over some of these numbers. Everywhere you see a circle, that's a forecast record high, so near 100 degrees expected in Phoenix, Denver, into the mid-80s, and as far north as Minneapolis. And this does press off towards the northeast. Look at this. In places like Syracuse, 80 mid to upper 80s in Hartford, Connecticut. Now, where we had that record snowpack, and we still do, 1 to 9 feet of it, we're going to see some flooding issues as we go on through the next couple of weeks, especially across the Intermountain West and the upper Mississippi Valley, which we're already seeing them start to make plans for the potential of flooding over the coming weeks. Lindsay?
Does not look like a traditional April forecast. Rob, thank you. When we come back, a historic passing to note. The last Nuremberg prosecutor, how he dedicated his life to justice. To the index now, 5-time Masters champ Tiger Woods has withdrawn from this year's Masters, citing a foot injury. Woods could be seen limping on Saturday before play was called due to inclement weather. It's the second time in the past year that the 47-year-old 15-time Majors champ has had to leave a major championship due to an injury. And a passing to note, the last of the World War II Nuremberg prosecutors has died. Ben Ferenz was just 27 and had never tried a case when he brought information to his superiors about 22 Nazis, part of a mobile killing unit. It would be called the largest murder trial in history. All 22 were convicted. Ferenz, a graduate of Harvard Law, devoted much of the rest of his life working for international justice. Ben Ferenz was 103.